I still remember the exact moment the city inspector stood on my porch, orange violation notice in hand, my full name stamped across the top like a sentence already decided. He cleared his throat and said, "Ma'am, your backyard shed is unpermitted and must be removed within 14 days. After that, the fines begin at $500 per day." My knees nearly gave out. That shed wasn't just lumber and nails. It was my late husband's workshop. He built it himself the year before cancer took him. Every board measured twice, every nail driven with care. It was the only place left where I could still feel him. And then the inspector said the words that made my blood turn to ice. The complaint was filed by a concerned neighbor. Signed, Karen Whitmore, HOA president. I stood there frozen, staring past him at her pristine white mansion across the cul-de-sac, the one with a brand-new infinity pool that appeared almost overnight last summer, complete with lights that glowed blue after dark. Everyone whispered she never pulled permits, but nobody dared challenge her. Karen ran the HOA like a tyrant in pearls, smiling while she crushed people under perfectly manicured nails. She'd already fined me twice for unauthorized flower pots, and once threatened to tow my car because one tire crossed the line by 2 inches. Now she was coming for the last piece of my husband that still existed in this world. That afternoon, I marched across the street and knocked on her door, heart pounding, grief turned into fury. She answered wearing a silk robe, sipping rose at 3 in the afternoon, lips curled into a tight, fake smile. "Rules are rules, sweetie," she said. "Your eyesore lowers property values." I told her the shed existed 15 years before the HOA. She shrugged like I'd said nothing at all. Then producing the original permit shouldn't be a problem. She knew I didn't have it. The paperwork disappeared when we packed up my husband's things after the funeral. She shut the door in my face. I swear I heard her laughing inside. For the next week, sleep was impossible. Every night I sat inside the shed, surrounded by his tools, sobbing into sawdust, imagining a bulldozer tearing it apart while Karen watched from her balcony with champagne and binoculars. The fine clock kept ticking. I begged the city for an extension. They told me the complainant was extremely persistent and had already scheduled demolition. I was 12 days from losing everything that still smelled like him. Then, on day 12, my doorbell rang at 7 in the morning. 2 city inspectors stood there this time, both visibly irritated. One glanced at his clipboard and asked, "Which way to the Whitmore property?" I thought I'd misheard. He repeated it. "Since Ms. Whitmore filed an anonymous complaint, we're required to inspect all structures within a 2-lot radius." My heart slammed against my ribs. I pointed across the street with shaking fingers. They walked right past my shed without a single glance and headed straight for her backyard gate. I followed at a distance, hiding behind my oak tree, phone already recording. The inspectors rounded the corner and stopped dead. One let out a low whistle. Her massive infinity pool, the one she bragged, cost $180,000. The underwater LEDs, the built-in grotto, 0 permits, 0 inspections, and worse. Built 3 feet over the city easement and 2 feet into a protected wetlands buffer. Karen came flying out in curlers and a robe, shrieking about harassment. The lead inspector calmly extended his tape measure and said, "Ma'am, this entire pool is illegal. You should prepare for it to be filled in." She went paper white, locked eyes with me across the street. For the first time ever, I saw fear on her face. She knew I was recording. She knew the neighbors were watching. And she knew the same city she weaponized against my 10 by 12 shed was about to crush her world 10 times harder. But what happened next, when she tried to bribe inspectors in broad daylight and the secret buried beneath that pool surfaced, was something no one expected. The inspectors didn't react to her screaming. One pulled out a red tag the size of a pizza box and slapped on her gate. Immediate cease and desist. Illegal structure. Karen lunged for it like she could tear reality apart. Remove that now. The older inspector didn't raise his voice. "Step back, ma'am, or we add obstruction." That's when she snapped completely. She spun toward me, still hiding behind my tree, and shrieked, "This is your fault. You did this." I stepped out ended the recording and smiled as sweetly as possible. "No, Karen, you did." Her face turned purple. She charged across the street in fuzzy slippers, robe flapping open, screaming threats, lawsuits, eviction, defamation, even burning my house down. It dissolved into incoherent rage. Half the neighborhood stood on porches filming. Someone started a group chat titled Poolgate. By noon, her yard looked like a crime scene. City trucks, surveyors, code enforcement, environmental regulators, and hip waiters. They discovered the pool wasn't just illegal. It was built over an old drainage culvert feeding protected wetlands. Every pump cycle dumped chlorine and sunscreen straight into marshland. Fines jumped into six figures and kept climbing. Karen cycled through tactics fast. First, victim mode. I'm a single woman. I didn't know. Then scorched earth, calling the mayor, calling the city attorney, screaming that she paid their salaries. A neighbor's Ring camera caught her offering the inspector an envelope for lunch. He held it up with two fingers and announced, "Ma'am, this is felony bribery." That night, she locked herself inside, sobbing into her phone about someone named Victor and owing $240,000. If the pool goes, I'm finished. I thought that was the peak. I was wrong. At 10 p.m., my doorbell rang. I opened it and found Karen standing on my porch. She was wearing sunglasses in the middle of the night, clutching a half-empty bottle of rose and a thick manila folder. Mascara streaked black lines down her cheeks. Before I could even speak, she pushed past me, dropped onto my couch like she owned the place, and said, "We can make this go away. You tell the city to back off, and I'll cover every fine you ever get for the rest of your life." I just stood there, stunned. Then she opened the folder and slid out a stack of grainy photographs. My breath caught. They showed my late husband kissing another woman. My knees nearly buckled. Karen smiled, slow and cruel. "You cooperate, or these go to your kids, your church, your Facebook. He wasn't the saint you think he was." I looked at the photos, felt grief and fury crash together in my chest, and said quietly, "Karen, you just made the worst mistake of your life." Because those pictures weren't the leverage she thought they were. And the man who took them was standing right outside my living room window, watching her bury herself deeper than that illegal pool ever could. Karen lounged on my couch, gripping the wine bottle like a life raft, convinced she cornered me. She had no idea her so-called private investigator, Victor, was staring straight at her through the glass. I'd known Victor for years. He was my husband's old firehouse friend, the one who helped me clean out the shed after the funeral. And months earlier, he'd warned me Karen hired him to dig up dirt on me. I leaned forward, met her eyes, and said, "Those photos aren't proof of an affair. They're from a 2012 sting. My husband was undercover, posing as a target to take down a blackmail ring. Victor had been his backup." Her smile evaporated. The bottle slipped from her hand, shattered on the floor, rose bleeding into my rug. "You're lying," she whispered. I pointed to the window. She turned, saw Victor's silhouette, and screamed like she'd seen a ghost. Victor stepped inside, all 6 foot for him, holding a USB drive. "Karen," he said, voice rough as gravel, "you paid me in 2019 to follow her husband, but I kept the real evidence. Your emails, your voicemails, you begging me to fake proof so you could destroy her. You want her gone from this neighborhood from day one." Her eyes flicked wildly. The truth spilled out fast. She hadn't targeted me over HOA rules or shed. She'd been obsessed with my husband years earlier, and he shut her down cold. Victor dropped the USB on my coffee table. It held everything. Her instructions to ruin me. Messages with her pool contractor about skipping permits to save money. Audio of her bribing HOA board members to remove me as treasurer. That pool wasn't just illegal, it was collateral. A loan shark had bankrolled her entire lifestyle. She'd emptied her savings, maxed out 3 hidden credit cards, and fallen 3 payments behind on a $240,000 debt. If that pool was destroyed, the lender, some guy named Dimitri, would come for her house. She bolted for the door. Victor blocked her with one arm. "Not happening." I picked up my phone, dialed the city inspector's after-hours line and played the voicemail she'd left earlier. "Drop this, or I'll bury you with those photos, you pathetic widow." The inspector, already furious from her bribery attempt, immediately looped in the district attorney. By midnight, 2 squad cars sat in her driveway. They didn't arrest her that night, but they seized her laptop and froze her accounts pending a fraud investigation. The next morning, the demolition crew arrived. Not from my shed. After I located an old zoning map, the city officially grandfathered it in as legal. They came for her pool. I stood on my porch as jackhammers tore through that $180,000 grotto. Karen sobbed on her lawn in a bathrobe, while neighbors filmed every second. By noon, Dimitri's black SUV circled the block. She packed a suitcase and disappeared before sunset. No forwarding address. No goodbye. A week later, the HOA held an emergency meeting. Her vice president read a resignation email sent from a random Gmail account citing personal reasons. We voted her out unanimously and dismantled half the rules she'd enforced. My shed still stands. And every time I sit inside it, I feel my husband's presence, like a hand on my shoulder saying, "You handled it." As for Karen, the last update I heard put her behind a gas station register 3 towns over, looking hollow and exhausted. Dimitri's SUV was parked outside. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it jackhammers.